We've added the instrumentation to the Zool object, and now what we want to do is kind of fix his vertical movement. Right now, if you take a look at Zool, you see that when he collides with the wall, let me go over here, collide with the wall, I stop, even though I was kind of hitting vertically, I stop in midair and then fall. What we're trying to do here is to have him slide up the wall a little bit before gravity takes over and then slides him back down. Another thing that would be helpful is say I'm right here next to the wall and I want to jump up on top of the wall. I can't really do that. And that makes sense when it comes to physics, right? But it'd be nice if we could kind of allow him to drift a little bit in the air. If you have the arrow key pressed, that'd make it easier to climb up on top of things. We'd also like when we hit this to continue drifting to the left. See how we hit our head while we're in the air? And I know this breaks the laws of physics. Once you've jumped, you shouldn't be able to affect the arc of the jump. But in most platform games, they don't follow the laws of physics very well. They're looking for a certain type of gameplay. What I'm talking about here is if I jump from here up and hit my head on the next wall here, so let me do that. We'd like it to drift to the left after we get done colliding with the wall. So we're going to add those features today to Zool. Now this is the beginning of chapter 4. I do want you to turn in what you have, but maybe a folder that says chapter 3 Zool. Turn that in and I'll see how you're doing so far. So maybe do that now. Make a copy of the game and then put it out in your 2 grade folder and call it chapter 3 Zool, something like that. Now we're adding some additional features. Where do all these things occur? Here's our state thing, so it's telling us where we are. We're talking about when we're in the air object. When we're object air, so that second thing, we're trying to control that a little bit better. So let's go to air and see what we need to change. All right, so we're looking at the collision with solid. And we're going to add some more stuff here. We have X and Y previous. We're still going to do that. The move to contact. But this is the part we don't like. We want to take this out. We'd like it to retain some vertical speed when it smashes into a wall when he's jumping. We want it to slide up the wall a little bit before he starts to fall. So this is pretty specialized movement. Okay, so I'm going to delete this. And then we're going to add a check for object at the bottom here. This one takes care of when there's a platform underneath us that switches us back to objects will land. But we have to do a check object here. And we're adding this to the end. What object are we looking for? We're looking for object solid, I think. Let me see. Yeah, it's object solid. So right here. And for X, we want to just say X because we're not changing X. But we want to check to see if in the Y direction we're colliding with something. So we say Y previous plus V speed. If we're going up, V speed will be negative. If we're going down, then V speed will be positive. Do not click on relative. That'll mess things up. It's already relative by the way it's being specified here. So we're checking for instances of object solid at that position. And we're seeing if there's anything in the way. And that would allow Zool to continue to slide vertically, but not horizontally after the collision. That's the behavior we're trying to create. So the next part would be to set the vertical speed. We're checking to see if there's something solid there. Next step is to set the vertical speed. So we'll do that. So if there is something in the way vertically, we do actually want to set the speed to 0. So that's what we do. But it's in the case where there isn't anything in the way vertically. So we drag out an else from the control tab. And then we go get this variable. So we're setting y then equal to y previous plus V speed. This will move Zool's position to the sliding point. If there isn't anything in the way, and it will also maintain Zool's vertical speed after the collision. Now we also want to do the same thing for the horizontal speed. We'd like to allow it to continue to move if there's nothing blocking in the way of the horizontal speed. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy these 4 lines of code. I'm going to paste them here at the end. Now when you paste, it's really frustrating, but when you paste, you can't paste after something. If I paste here, see how this got moved down? So you got to be careful when you paste. The only thing different with these 4s is instead of using the vertical direction, we're testing for the horizontal direction. So the changes would be like this. You go here, you set x to x previous plus h speed, that's the horizontal speed, and then set this to y. So we're doing the horizontal version of this. So again, you check the object to see if object solid is in the way vertically in the next step. Instead of setting the vertical speed to 0, we're going to set the horizontal speed to 0. That's this one. So we set that to 0. Get rid of this one. And then here, change it to x, x previous, and then h speed. Now the last step that we want to do is these 2 right here, where it checks to see if we're on a platform, and if we are, then we change to object Zool land. That should happen last. So if you could grab those 2 things and drag them down to the bottom. We want to do that last. So first we check to see if there's something in the way vertically. If it is, we stop our vertical direction. So we hit our head on something perhaps. If not, we should continue going even though we collided with something. We'll keep x the same, but we'll allow us to slide up the wall. Here we do the same thing with x. And then finally, if we happen to end up on the ground, because the platform is solid as well, then we change to object Zool land. If you look at platform, you see that its parent is object solid. All right, so let's run the game and see if there's any difference in the behavior of the game. Okay, here's object Zool. What we're trying to see is if we slide up the wall when we hit it. See how when I hit the wall, he keeps going up a little bit once we bump our head? Yeah, so that's a little bit more realistic. So the horizontal speed stops, but the vertical speed still kind of behaves like gravity. The next behavior we'd like to put into the game mechanics is once you're in the air, like right here, you hit your head, it'd be nice if we could drift to the left since we're holding down the left key. In a lot of platform games, that's kind of expected, even though it breaks the laws of physics. Here too is a problem where we jump and we'd like to get up on top there, and I'm holding down the right key, but it's just not going right. And that makes sense in the world of the real world. You jump up even though you're trying to go on top of the ledge. Once you jump, you can't change your horizontal speed. You have to jump from back there. So what we're going to try to do is when we jump and we have the right key set, it will allow us to go on top of the ledge. Let's do that behavior next. Okay, so we go back here and we're going to change, make one change here. So one we just put in. This horizontal speed. Just temporarily, we're going to set this to h speed. It's kind of silly. What do you want to set the horizontal speed to? Well, the horizontal speed. But for now, let's set it up that way. We'll make a couple other changes. Let's try it now. You'll be able to see this kind of drifting idea, this horizontal drift. So here I am, I hit the wall. It's probably better shown off of this platform. So I jump up, I hit my head, but notice how I kind of fly to the left because I have the left key down. Does it allow me to jump up here? Still doesn't do that. But for our horizontal speed, if we happen to be moving horizontally and then the thing gets out of the way, it allows us to drift underneath it. And in most platform games, that's allowed. See, once my head clears to the bottom of that one platform, I'm able to drift to the left. But it's still kind of clunky, so we have to put a couple things in to the game to smooth it out a bit. First, we go to the Resources tab, and we go to Define Constants. And we're going to add a new constant. We're going to call this max drift speed. And we're going to set that to 8. Okay, then go back in here and we're going to use that constant here. And we're going to do a median function on this. So negative max drift speed, comma h speed, comma positive max drift speed. Do you click on relative? No. So this limits the amount of drift to plus or minus 8. Let's see if that changes the behavior in the game now. Jump in here. It's not as acute of an angle coming off, so it does limit you a little bit. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do to make this new drifting mechanic work is we're going to put some key press event handlers inside Object Zool Air. Up to this point, the only way you could move is when Object Zool was standing, and then it will allow you to move left and right. We're going to put some keyboard events inside Object Zool to allow us to change the direction of Zool even while he's in midair. So let's add those key presses here. These are actually keyboard events. So keyboard, and we want to say left. So if you happen to be Object Zool Air and they hit the left key, that's what we're trying to define. Here's the variable. We're going to set facing to our constant face left. So since we just hit the left key. Next we want to check the variable h speed. So if Zool's current h speed is larger than the negative form of our new constant, max drift speed, so that's what that would look like. And then you would change the vertical speed here. So we want to limit this to 1 pixel per frame, this acceleration. So that's very, very small compared to what we were seeing just a moment ago. And this should be -1. We want to do the same thing for right. So we're going to add a right key press, keyboard event I mean. So keyboard right. We'll paste that in here. We set this variable so we get the right picture drawn in the Zool object straw event. Here we say smaller than positive max drift speed, I think. And then if that's the case, then we set the horizontal speed to 1. So we're going to the right. relative. So let's see what this does to the game mechanics. So here we are at the top of this wall. See how we're able to jump up now? So I'm right next to the wall, I jump, and it allows me to jump up on top, whereas before it wasn't allowing me to do that, unless I was coming at it from a run. But if you're right next to it, there was no way to jump up on top. Now we can do that. And that's how most platform games work. Even though you've already jumped and you can't really change your trajectory, we're kind of making it a little bit easier to play by adding that little bit of code that allows us to do that. Okay, so our final thing that we need to do to get this to really work well is we're going to go back to our keyboard left event. We're going to add this test variable. This is going to be the H speed. We're going to say larger than 0. That means we're moving to the right. So they're flying through arrow to the right and they're hitting the left arrow. What should happen here? We're going to set the horizontal speed to 0. So what we're trying to do is add a little bit of control. Say you're in the air and you want to avoid touching a monster. This allows us to change the direction in the air to get away from it. And then we put that same kind of control into the right one as well. If it's smaller than 0, then we also set the horizontal speed to 0. This is a lot more subtle. See how I'm able to turn in midair? I jump this way, turn that way. Again, normally you can't do that, but it allows you to avoid nasty things. The one that bothers me is a double jump. What is that? Okay, I'm going to go fix this ramp thing. That's getting annoying. So those tiles in the tile set, remember we set the depth for all of these to -1001, but for the ramps, or maybe it's the slopes, it's probably the tiles. Take a look in our test room. We'll take a look at our tiles. So here's our tile layer. I'm curious to see what layer these are. It's like we have 2 layers. This one's -1000. I was hoping that by making Zool -1001, we guess we went the wrong direction. Yeah, so I think what we want is for these not to be -1001, but perhaps -999. How about that? Because right now our ramp isn't working out, so I guess I went the wrong direction. Last one. Okay, try it one more time. See if we're behind the ramp instead of in front of it. Yeah, now we have the Z order figured out. So at this point, you should have a Zool that can jump up on top of things now. Shouldn't get stuck anymore. Certainly on the transition from the right to the left side of the room, that should be smoothed out. Next thing we're probably going to do is cling to the walls so we can climb the walls. But for now, this mechanic is looking pretty good.